In the early 1900s, the building was occupied by the social services department, and it provided a living space for homeless people that were coming in on the trains looking for work. And you can't see it in the picture there behind Sika, but there's a very steep drop off.
Yeah.
At the front of the building that literally goes straight down to the train tracks.
Yeah, there's a road now, but it used to just be a hill, and then there was an entrance to the building through a tunnel. Right?
Yes, and that's exactly where I'm going with this, is that the social services department dug a tunnel from the basement of the custom house down to where the trains would stop. So these homeless men didn't have to injure themselves trying to climb up this embankment. They could just come in through the tunnel up into the building.
Good.
And one night there were 15 men inside the tunnel when it collapsed. And all 15 were buried alive in this tunnel. And another one of the spirits we have here at home from the custom house is one of these 15 men from the tunnel as well.
Oh my goodness.
Here's an interesting story, because I used to do the tours at Custom House, right? Ed and I used to be tour guides there. I've had a lot of experiences. Now, the Dark Lady is always this one, that gets sort of hashed over. It's a bit like the Colin Swayze story of Niagara on the Lake.
Yes.
It's not true story. It's grown legs of its own, because these ghost tours and that like to, make it like it's something real. But the story was a poem that was written by the customs guy who used to live in this building. And he wrote this poem about the Dark Lady. And the Dark Lady was referring to gin. Gin was a real problem in Victorian times, right? With people drinking bathtub gin and it was the scourge of the Victorian era. And so he wrote a poem about it. I actually went to the Halloween party, a Halloween party dressed as the Dark Lady. I was 7 feet tall. Oh. I had huge shoes on underneath with this great big wig, all dressed in.
So what's the story of the Dark Lady? Because I don't actually know.
Right. Well, we'll talk.
The story is that she was a young woman from England.
Yes.
From a small village. And she was attacked and raped by a man of very important influence in that village. Mm-hmm. And to protect her from further sexual assaults, her family decided it would be best if they sent her away. Mm-hmm. So the story goes is that they put her on a ship sailing out from England to the British colonies here in Canada. And the ship that she was on ended up here in Hamilton, Ontario. And during the voyage, it's said that she fell in love with the ship's captain and entered into a romance with him during the voyage. And as the ship drew close into Hamilton, the lights were appearing on the horizon. They were coming into the harbor. It said, the captain suddenly remembered that he had a wife and children back home in England.
Oh, no.
Yes. So he did. In order to prevent any kind of scandal, he murdered this woman they called the Dark Lady. He strangled her. Oh. When the ship docked, the crew brought the body into the custom house and buried it inside a vaulted chamber that's in the basement.
Oh, how terrible!
And they say that her body is bricked up inside the walls or in the floor of this vault.
Great fairy tale of the custom.
And so that's the story, the legend of the Dark Lady as to why she's there.
But the real story is it was a poem written about gin and the vices of gin. And the description of the Dark Lady in the poem was that she was 7 feet tall with horns and that she was beautiful and could entice any man, right? So they're talking about the horrors of drinking gin and being, a drunkard and being an alcoholic. But so... Yeah. So interestingly enough, though, this building is quite an interesting place because when I used to do the tours there, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you go downstairs into the basement where the dummy, the serving dummy is, right, the elevator, the food dummy.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the room across that had the servants' staircase
Mm-hmm.
where you would open the door and you could go in.
Yeah.
I could never enter that space.
There's a funky energy in there.
Well, I'll tell you why, because I finally entered the space after a number of tours. I could barely put my hand on the door handle to open the door to that staircase. When I ended up finally going in, I had the worst experience in that house that I had ever had. It was everything just all at once. There was screaming, there was muffled crying, there was this horrible, horrible scene on the staircase of one of the young servant girls being raped. And so it was just like, yeah, this is why I don't go in this room. But it was just like all of it was just playing out for me. It was like the worst experience in that house. Well, it's not a house in that building, but I mean, there's some great stories with it. A lot of them are just that they're stories, but it certainly has a definite presence and an energy, and it was a macaroni factory even.
Back in from the 1950s right up to about 1979. Yeah. It was a macaroni factory. Yeah.
Factory. They were making pasta in there. So it had all of these.
I'm waiting for the pasta ghost story.
I don't know.
Well, the story connected to the macaroni factory.
The pesticide story
is the caretaker of the building.
Really? Wow.
Who was there at the time from 1952.
Yeah.
And he haunts the attic upstairs.
The attic space, yeah.
His name is Walter.
Yes.
He hung himself in a back room in that attic. And we've had some experiences with him as well.
Yeah, he's been around. He's sort of in that upper third floor area, often in that attic space where there's storage, but even in the hallway that leads into that one space, you'll come across him there. But I mean, it is an interesting building, and it has like a really great, I mean, great in the weirdest sense, but there's some good energy, and there's some quite not great energy in that place. We've got some fantastic photos of a tour where we had taken the lantern and placed it on the floor, and there is a jagged beam of red light, like a lightning bolt, that goes from the lantern right up to the ceiling. Now, it was not taken with a cell phone. It was taken with a legitimate camera, which at the time was, something to say, because a cell phone, I'm never sure, because the shutter lag is so bad on it. And I mean, even this could have been where we were putting it onto the floor. The shutter was open, and it captured that light stream moving down to the lantern. It's a really cool photo, though, no matter what, whether it's a legit or it's just an anomaly of the fact that we were placing the lantern on the floor. And when the picture was taken, it was just capturing that field of light as it was going down. But it's very cool. But it is a cool space. So, guys, guess what?
We're out of time.
Oh, my gosh.
But we
ran over time, but I don't care. It was a great episode.
So next week, excuse me, we're going to have Ian show us toys, and he's going to discuss toys, and then Rachel and I can ask questions, because some of the stuff I do know what it does, but I'm kind of curious as to, and I know Ian, like we've been on, and we did the bell tower at the same time together, so I'm going to ask ahead of time, please don't turn the REM pod on.
Oh, I know. It can be annoying. Yeah.
It's the worst. If I was a spirit and I heard that, I'd be like...
I'll tell you now, I will turn it on just for a second, just so you can see what it does. And then I promise I will turn it off again right away.
That's it. It's like the REM pod makes me crazy, literally. We used it when we did Iron Island. Have you been to Iron Island, Ian?
No.
Oh, over in Buffalo? Phenomenal space to investigate. We didn't overnight.
Oh,
and
wow.
there was 6 of us in there from 8 o'clock at night till about 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was an old funeral. It was an old church that was made into a funeral home, and now it's a community museum. So it's really cool. It's a really cool space. We'll talk about that one day. But anyway, that is it for today, everyone. So thank you for joining us here on Down the Rabbit Hole. We are going to next week do the show with Ian, who's going to talk about all of the amazing gadgets that he has that Rachel and I don't have.
Yeah, that's true.
And we look forward to that, because it's always, I think people are always curious about what, they see these things on the shows and they're like, what do these things do?
Exactly. Yeah.
Walk and talk.
Yeah, well, I've been been on a few investigations. Well, just very quickly here, again, it was at the Custom House, and we were doing one of our investigations, and Trudy and I were setting up our equipment. And some of the people there, knowing what this equipment was, because they'd seen it on TV, but had never seen it in person.
I've seen on TV.
Yeah, I've seen on TV, but I've never really seen it. They came over and they were just intrigued. It's like, oh, wow, can we follow you around all evening? And oh God. Like, yeah, okay, sure.
So I think it's a really good thing to do.
But that's what their intriguement was the equipment, because once we got it set up, paranormal investigation is not like you see it on television.
No, it's not. It's like
not even remotely.
We sat down and went like this and just sat there waiting for something to happen. And these people got so bored.
Like,
within about 10 minutes, they just took off and we never saw them again.
Sorry, but I think you've hit on you've hit on such a point that there's an expectation that goes along with these paranormal shows that
people watch these shows and then come to a real paranormal investigation, and they expect ghosts to come jumping out of the wall.
They're like waiting. Yeah,
and it doesn't work like that.
I know. Yeah.
But again, it's much like anything, right? There's a certain expectation, whether it's doing, readings, or it's doing, ghost investigations, or it's whatever. There's always an expectation, especially if it's presented on television in a very specific way, that, they're not seeing that, 30 hours of shooting gives you 1 hour of maybe some activity together into a show. Right. And that's exactly the whole, crux of these shows. I mean, it's like when I do TV shows, I'm doing a historical show. I'm talking about an incident in history. I'm sitting there talking. I'm talking for 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I might get 15 minutes of airtime on a show. Yeah. So, it's whatever works for the episode and what is most relevant. So that's kind of it. I'm looking forward to next week's show, because, like I said, I'm no expert in the gadget area of paranormal investigation. I have tried a few things. I found them less reliable than my own abilities, but I've also found things that do work in conjunction and can actually help to.
I can't wait to discuss that in more detail. That's going to be so much
fun.
So we'll look forward to that. All right. So next week's show, everybody, will be Ian presenting and showing and talking about all of these gadgets and paranormal pieces of equipment that you might see on a paranormal show. And Rachel and I are going to ask questions, because we're questions. So that is today's show. So thank you, everyone, for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. So have a good week. Stay safe out there. And see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.